Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here again, taking your source materials, those dense articles, timelines, cultural notes, and really uh, boiling them down for you.
That's the plan. And today, wow, we have something really fascinating. We're jumping into a comparative look at regional identity within Korea.
Right, specifically focusing on two regions, using these incredibly detailed cultural packets you sent in. We're looking at North Korea's North Hamgyong province.
And South Korea's Gyeongsang region. The goal here is to unpack the cultural, the artistic, even the linguistic DNA of these places.
And ask that core question. Both are known for, let's say, strong personalities, unique dialects, industry. But how have their totally different modern histories shaped the feel of that identity?
Exactly. Because that's the hook, isn't it?
It really is. We've got two regions famous across the whole peninsula for being, well, tough.
But Gyeongsang was central to South Korea's rise, political power, industry, the economic miracle.
Well, Hamgyong's story is more about isolation, hardship, and unfortunately even famine.
So the paradox is, how can places separated by such a huge political and economic divide share this reputation for, resilience?
Yeah.
That's what we're diving into.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. The foundation. History and terrain.
Mm.
We'll kick off up north with North Hamgyong.
Right. And if you look at a map, it immediately tells you something crucial. It's a border province.
Bordering China and Russia.
Yeah, which gives it this inherently multicultural flavor, but also makes it feel perpetually exposed, maybe a bit vulnerable.
And historically, that geography played a huge role in its identity, didn't it?
It really did. During the Joseon dynasty, for instance, being sent to Hamgyong wasn't a promotion. It was often a form of official punishment.
Exile for disgraced officials, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So it gained this reputation early on as a hardship region. And that perception, well, it stuck and profoundly shaped its character.
And that history of hardship, it sadly didn't end there. It reached an absolutely horrific point in the 1990s.
The famine. North Korea calls it the arduous march.
And our sources show North Hamgyong was hit incredibly hard, one of the worst affected areas.
Absolutely. And you have to understand, this wasn't just some historical event. It fundamentally reshaped people's outlook, their pride. It became about what they could overcome.
Not just what they built.
Right. And even looking further back, historically, it was part of powerful northern kingdoms like Goguryeo and Balhae.
Known for being pretty martial, right?
Very much so. And its main city, Cheongjin, was heavily bombed during the Korean War, too. So this sense of survival, of stoicism, it runs deep, spans centuries.
Okay, so let's pivot. Let's go south now to Gyeongsang. If Hamgyong's story is enduring hardship, Gyeongsang's is more about maybe foundation and power.
That's a good way to put it. This is the birthplace of the Silla Kingdom.
The first kingdom to unify most of the peninsula, centered around Gyeongju.
Exactly. That established really deep cultural roots. Gyeongsang became known for historical learning, Confucian academies like Dosan Seon.
But the modern story is quite different, isn't it?
Yeah.
While that history is there.
Oh, absolutely. Its modern significance is built on, well, sheer assertion. This region became the political and economic powerhouse of modern South Korea.
We're talking the birthplace of multiple presidents.
And the heart of that massive industrialization drive from the 60s onwards.
Places like Pohang Steel, the huge shipyards in Ulsan, that's all Gyeongsang.
Right. So the Gyeongsang identity is really rooted in strength through building, through leading. It's outward looking.
So that's the core contrast then. Hamgyong's toughness is maybe more internal, about survival stoicism.
Yes. Whereas Gyeongsang's toughness feels more external political power, industrial drive, self-determination.
Okay, so if those are the foundations, scarcity versus maybe not abundance, but certainly more opportunity, how does that show up in daily, like, food and style? These are cultural markers.
They really tell the story. In Hamgyong, the food is almost entirely shaped by necessity and that cold, tougher terrain.
So less rice farming.
Much less. They rely more on staple grains like corn, barley, potatoes, and the coast is vital. Lots of cold water fish, pollock, squid, seaweed.
And the famous Hamgyong naengmyeon, those cold buckwheat noodles. They're known for being intense, right?
Extremely. The broth is notoriously strong, often quite tangy, vinegary.
Why is that?
Well, the thinking is it originally needed to pack a punch, flavor-wise, and provide maximum sustenance from, frankly, sometimes minimal or lower quality ingredients. Fuel for hard, cold work.
Function over flavor, almost.
In a way, yes. Now compare that to Gyeongsang cuisine. It's also known for strong flavors, often saltier.
But coming from a place of having more to work with.
Exactly. Think of hearty dishes like Busan's pork gukbap soup or Andong jimdak, that rich braised chicken dish. Even their version of cold noodles, milmyeon in Busan.
That's the one made with wheat flour, right?
Right.
A wartime adaptation.
Yeah, because buckwheat was scarce during the Korean War, but they make it rich, flavorful. It shows adaptation, but also making the most of available resources, maximizing taste.
The clothing differences seem stark, too, based on the sources.
Oh, definitely. For traditional North Hamgyung style, think plain hanbok, often hemp or cotton, practical, and patched, reuse a visual sign of scarcity. Plus, heavy padded coats are essential for the winters.
Functional, durable.
Whereas in the South, Gyeongsang had its history of, fancy Confucian scholar robes.
Right.
But the modern style, especially in cities like Busan, is described as fashion-forward, casual, street-influenced. It reflects connection to global trends, economic energy.
It's like the visual difference between just enduring and actively excelling, maybe.
That's a really good way to frame it. Enduring versus excelling.
Okay, let's talk about the sound of these places. The dialects. Both are famous across Korea for being distinct and pretty direct.
Very direct, but maybe direct in slightly different ways. The Hangudong dialect is often called one of the most austere. It's fast, sharp, no frills.
Like the example phrase, one hagano the two. What are you doing? It sounds quite blunt.
It does. It reflects that no-nonsense attitude, maybe born from the environment. Survival doesn't leave much room for pleasantries.
And interestingly, the state narrative in North Korea actually leans into this, doesn't it? Connecting it to industrial pride.
Yes. They celebrate Cheongjin, the main city, as the steel city of Juche, Yush being the state ideology of self-reliance.
So praising their industrial toughness is like a badge of honor.
It is. Now, Gyeongsang dialect is also direct, but maybe more assertive, driving.
Clipped, maybe?
Yeah, clipped is a good word. Their signature linguistic feature is that sentence ending, oh, no. It gives the speech a dynamic feel. And their version of the phrase is incredibly similar. Wahano?
While Wol Hagano versus Wohano. That is uncannily close.
Isn't it? And think about the cities. Both regions are anchored by these big industrial port cities.
Cheongshin with steel and racing, that special economic zone up north.
Versus Ulsan, the shipyard city, and Busan, the massive global port down south.
Both deeply tied to industry, mountains, the sea. It's striking. If the geography and the industrial base have these parallels, why hasn't 70 years of division made their core personalities diverge more completely?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? One hypothesis is that the shared environment, the demands of heavy industry, working the sea, requires a certain kind of direct, unvarnished communication.
Right. No time for beating around the bush in a steel mill or on a fishing boat.
Exactly. That might create this kind of unyielding cultural baseline that persists despite the different political systems overhead.
That baseline, that sound of resilience we hear in the dialect,
Yeah.
it seems to get even louder when we look at the music.
Oh, absolutely. The ultimate cultural expression, right? We looked at the source descriptions for 2 representative songs, one from each region, and they tell this powerful story of struggle and pride.
Let's start with North Hamgying. The genre description alone is something else.
It's incredible. Post-industrial doom folk meets symphonic blackened rock, and also shamanic ritual dance fusion.
Wow. So the music is explicitly trying to capture that feeling of hardship, isolation, defiance.
Yes, exactly. Hardship, hunger, isolation, defiance, maybe in the face of a kind of decaying industrial dream.
And the instruments used, it sounds like a really unique mix.
It is. You've got traditional Korean instruments like the gayajum, these big buck drums, but then layered with iron and found percussion.
Like literally the sounds of the factory.
Kind of evoking that, yeah. Sounds of struggling industry. Then add the Russian influence, the accordion or bayan, and the Mongolian morinkur, the horsehead fiddle.
Which points straight back to those border influences we talked about.
Precisely. It paints this soundscape of internal strength, maybe, but also the desolate landscape.
Yeah.
And there are these distorted guitar drones adding to the atmosphere.
What about the lyrics? What themes come through?
It's very much focused on that stoic survival mode, working just to live, enduring hunger. There's less overt political praise, more about the power of the land itself.
Like the example line, working to survive.
Stark, isn't it?
Yeah.
And invoking nature's spirit. the tiger spirit in the mountains watches over us. It suggests this reliance on something primal, the wilderness, maybe not the state.
Okay, now shifting south to the Gyeongsang Sung analysis. The vibe sounds modern, but still intense.
Just as intense, but in a different way. The genre is described as K-pop meets indie rock and hip-hop, gritty underground.
So using globalized sounds, high production maybe.
Right, but the core feeling is still about resilience, but maybe with more satirical humor, a kind of unvarnished honesty and pride and heritage.
How does the instrumentation reflect that?
It's about modern power, assertion. Heavy electric guitar riffs, really complex drum and bass, or even metal-style percussion layers, synth bass lines, real muscle.
But does it connect to tradition at all?
It does, and cleverly. They integrate traditional instruments like the jangu and buck drums, the piri double reed pipe, the taepyeongso trumpet.
Instruments often associated with, like, court music or military band.
Exactly, so it projects this sense of powerful, deep-rooted tradition underneath the modern, driving sound. Confidence?
And the lyrics, do they match that energy?
Absolutely. Focused on action, self-determination. Interestingly, they use similar industrial metaphors like fire and steel, but aimed outwards.
Like the line, K-Dun, you do like Dom.
Steel like blood is boiling. It's about inner strength ready to burst out, and that classic Gyeongsang call to action, Judah!
What are you doing? Get up, scream out. Very correct. Very driving.
Exactly.
Okay, but I have to push back a bit here. We've established both regions are tied to heavy industry, the sea. But shouldn't that toughness look really different? One system is a command economy where, frankly, failure could mean starvation. The other is relentless global capitalism, kill or be killed in the market. How can the quality of resilience be the same?
That's where you see the crucial difference within the similarity, I think. In the North, the toughness feels almost forced. It's survival against the odds, demanding internal sacrifice, that stoicism we talked about. You endure, keep your head down. In the South, the Gyeongsang toughness feels more chosen in a way. It's competitive, assertive, aimed at conquering markets, pushing forward. You raise your voice, demand success.
So both have intense regional pride.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But one is maybe defined more by overcoming historical trauma and scarcity, the other by asserting modern economic and political destiny. Yet both value that core trait, resolve.
So wrapping this up, the big takeaway from this deep dive seems to be about that essential core identity.
Yeah. Despite 70 years of political division, vastly different economies, both North Hamgyong and Gyeongsang, share this incredibly intense regional pride, this blunt communication style.
And identities forged by the same tough stuff. Mountains, the sea, heavy industry.
The final thought for you, the listener, is really this. The political systems might have dictated completely different paths, one towards, let's say, stoic survival, the other towards assertive leadership.
But that core value, that unyielding resolve, seems to be the main cultural measure in both places. It's like the geography and the demands of that kind of work preserved something fundamental about Korean character, right across that dividing line.
It really makes you wonder how much the human spirit, faced with the unchanging realities of land and labor, resists top-down political engineering. If the dialects are so similar, if the value placed on toughness resonates in both, what does that say?
It suggests something incredibly enduring, a spirit that finds a way to push through, whether the obstacle is famine or fierce global competition.
And maybe that shared determination, that spirit, is best captured by that last line from the Gyeongsang song we looked at. It feels like it could apply to the spirit of North Hamgyong too, in its own way, towards the very end.
Thanks for diving deep with us today.